During is Luke Jackson because we were able to nail down former general manager of the Baltimore Orioles, Boston Red Sox, and also the Montreal Expos. That is Dan Duquette. Dan, thank you for joining Ross Grimsley and myself today.
Yeah, my pleasure. How are you guys doing?
We're all doing good.
Great.
We're all doing good. Dan, I want to remind folks, by the way, that we are brought to you by the Costas Inn. And good news, the Costas Inn in Timonium, the second location, is open as of today. They're there for lunch and dinner. We'll tell you more about it midway through this broadcast. Dan, you still have an affection for the Baltimore Orioles and the Baltimore baseball fans. Could you have imagined that a season could start as poorly as this could have with as much talent on hand?
Yeah, I don't think anybody anticipated the kind of start for the Orioles that the Orioles have had this year. Once you raise the expectations of your fans, and the fans in Baltimore are great fans, right? They connect with the team, and once you do well, they expect you to keep doing well. And the Orioles had built the team back up the last 2 years. I think they won over 100, 101, and then last year 91. And going into the season, everyone's expectations were that the Orioles would continue at that level that they had established, right, at the contenders and playoff contenders, and an opportunity to go into the postseason. And that certainly hasn't been the way that it's gone. Some of the things in spring training, I used to always say, if you got through spring training, everybody was healthy, you had a good spring training, right? Well, the Orioles didn't have a good spring training because they had some key players that were hurt. And by the time that we started, I think the last count, they had 7 starting pitchers on the injured list. And I don't know that there's any team in the industry that can withstand that kind of attrition of their pitching staff, particularly early in the season.
Given the problems they had early with injuries, and Mike Elias would be the first to admit that he didn't get production out of some of the new people he brought in. It's been unfortunate that Tyler O'Neill has lived up to his kind of career path, which is a lot of injuries. And Gary Sanchez hasn't done much, and Charlie Morton got off so poorly. But given that, were you surprised that they moved from Brandon Hyde as quickly as they did this season? Or did you think, yeah, it makes sense?
Yeah, well, I don't know all the particulars.
Right.
I was in spring training. I saw the Orioles, and I met with Mike, and I also talked to Brandon Hyde, and I wish him a lot of luck. I thought they were going to have a good year.
Yep.
And it didn't start out that way. I mean, making a managerial change is always a difficult task. But like Earl Weaver says, if you keep pushing the same buttons every day and them buttons ain't working for you, you better push some others. And I think that's what the Orioles are hoping to affect a change, and they decided to change their manager, which is their prerogative.
Yep.
It's tough to do it during the season. But I thought Brandon Hyde had a good run with the team, and they were able to rebuild their roster and get back to the competitive top of the American League East. And that's, like I said, that's a personal choice. You'd have to be on the inside of the team,
Yeah.
to to know what was happening and what wasn't happening. It was pretty clear the team got off to a dismal start.
Ross, go ahead. You get a
Yeah,
couple.
Dan, like you said, the O's won 191 games in the last 2 seasons, and they were averaging last 3. They've averaged 91 a year. and getting off to the start that, well, halfway during the season last year, they've ended the season struggling a bit with some different things. But losing one of your top pitchers to free agency, Santander, who had an outstanding year during the offseason, they really didn't go after, I think, a quality pitcher. And even in the draft, they don't draft pitching. Can you talk a little bit about that? I don't see. I know when the Orioles moved the fences back, the pitching improved, and now all of a sudden they want to move it in. And and I don't. You move the fences in, and pitchers ain't going to want to come to play for you. But can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I'll talk a little bit about the team. Corbin Burns went to Arizona, and he was the stability of the rotation last year, right? And they probably so they lost him, and he's not available. And then probably they're one of the top, most consistent pitchers, and a guy that could develop into a anchor in your rotation, Grayson Rodriguez. I mean, he ended the year last year. He was not available to the club. They were trying to get him ready for the playoffs, and they just ran out of time. But he had a start. He had a playoff start the year before against Texas, and they gave him that, I'm sure, to get experience because they thought he was one of their top pitchers. But he's not available. So now you've got two of the top men in your rotation, right? The draft horses, pulling the sled, and they're not available.
Bradish to boot.
Yeah, and Bradish as well. Bradish had a good year throwing that slider after they got him. So, there's some top quality pitchers there that aren't available to him. But, my point is that those guys stabilized the team. They gave them the innings, and they gave them the quality innings, which allowed them to contend. And then they don't have those guys. Some of the other guys they brought in are like I said, they had 7 players that are starting pitching candidates that were hurt, and I don't know how any team overcomes that. I really don't. I don't know how you have enough pitching depth to overcome that. Your point about drafting pitchers, the great Oriole teams have always drafted and signed and developed pitchers, right? That they've been able to put into their team, and this Oriole team at some point is going to have to develop some pitching that they get through either the draft or the international market to come up and augment their team, because there's first of all, there's not enough pitching to go around.
And it's dropping quick.
There's not enough pitching to go around, and this is alarming to me. From 2020 to 2024, the amount of time major league players have spent on the disabled list has effectively doubled. Okay,
is this all players or just pitchers, Dan?
All players.
All players.
It's double. Okay.
Yeah.
But almost 3/4 of that is the pitchers.
Yeah.
It's like 70%. But that's an alarming number, and that number should scare not just the Orioles, but all of Major League Baseball, right? You don't have enough pitchers to go around to start with, and then you've got 2 out of 3 that are getting hurt every single year, right? I mean, everybody chases velocity, but at what cost, right? At what cost? Now, if I take the other side of the argument and I say the best ability is availability, well, we got 2 out of 3 guys that don't have the best ability that are pitching on our staff in the big leagues.
Yeah.
And then my question is, what are all these performance experts doing? What are all our medical staff doing? What is all our strength and conditioning people doing when we have 2/3 of our pitching staff that's not available to us. Okay, it's like velocity. Okay, I understand the velocity. People are chasing velocity because they see the results, right? They see the data. Okay, but let's take a look at a common sense approach. All right, velocity is not the only way to get the hitter out, right?
Thank you. Thank
Ross,
you, Dan.
Oh yeah.
Ross, was that the only thing that you used to,
No.
to get
Science
hitters
and
out?
footwork.
Well, Greg Maddox says it's not a velocity contest.
Right.
It's a pitching contest, right? So I don't know. I think you have to have some common sense. Add some common sense to the equation, right?
That's one of the things that I know Tom Verducci did a thing on starters from 2019 to 2023 that averaged 96.5 miles per hour in a season and threw a minimum of 600 fastballs in any of those seasons. 21 of them had arm injuries, 18 of them uh, uh, elbow problems, 22 Tommy John surgeries out of those 21 pitchers. All of them averaged above 96.5 miles per hour. The ulnar nerve is not able to handle the torque or the spin and what have you. And all these guys throwing that hard, it's just a matter of time. And some of them have had 2 and 3 surgeries over that 21 amount. And after the first one, the second one's about 50%, 50 to 60% success. After that, you're pretty much, it's hard to do. So
yeah, there's not a lot of pitchers that have come back from multiple ligament corrective surgeries, right? I mean,
it's a bad investment for a pitcher now.
Well,
until they change it and learn that you don't have to do that you don't have to throw 95, 100 miles an hour because it's just a recipe for disaster. And something's got to change on that.
So let me jump in, Dan, because I know you really care, and this is not a knock at Mike Elias that he doesn't care about scouting because he was a scout, but I know scouting is very important to you. When they're scouting pitchers today, are they only looking at the gun? Are they ever kind of thinking outside the new box and thinking of, hey, this guy looks like he might be able to figure out how to get hitters out without the excessive velocity?
well, I think that the culture has changed a little bit, and it's not all. It's a problem for Major League Baseball, but it's not all their fault. I've seen the numbers of the pitchers in youth baseball that are hurt. I mean, these kids are hurt before they even get to high school, and I'm seeing the alarming numbers of pitchers that will go and have a ligament transplant surgery. You know, the intent of that Tommy John surgery was to extend the career of a player that had gotten to the big leagues.
Right.
It was not to create bionic arms for kids to go out and throw them off, throw as hard as they could, so that they would get another bionic arm that was better than the first one they had. That really wasn't the intent of the surgery. It was to extend the career of a veteran guy. But
and ironically, Tommy John was not a hard thrower. He was a crafty left-hander.
He was a pitcher, right? He relied on a finesse and change of speeds. He was quite durable, actually.
Yeah.
And he was a good fielder. But I was watching a video on YouTube of Tom House and Nolan Ryan, and they were talking about deliveries and proper deliveries, and how if you get your delivery tuned up, how everything's related. in terms of your entire body, and how if you get it tuned up and you have a proper separation and you sequence your delivery properly and you have good foot strike and release and follow through, and you use the major muscles in your body to take the strain off your arm. How you can keep yourself healthy. And then we got a little bit further into the video, and Nolan was talking himself, and he said, I'm gonna flat out tell you, I conditioned so that I could throw 12 innings because I didn't condition for a 9-inning game. He said my mindset was to pitch the complete game, and he goes, I was taught coming up that there was a game between who was it, Marichal and
Spahn.
Koufax. Spahn. Yeah.
16
right?
innings. 16
15
innings.
innings, right? And Marichal was the young guy, Spahn was the old guy, and Marichal said, if that old son of a gun is going to stay out there, I'm going to stay out there. I'm competing against him today. Now, if you look at the conditioning of these pitchers, they're the good staffs in the big leagues. They're throwing like 92, 93 pitchers. Phillies do a good job of keeping their pitchers healthy. They're throwing like 92, 93 pitchers, and they're coming out of the game. But that speaks to the point of getting yourself healthy to be available for the team, right? Every team is always looking for people that are reliable. Doesn't matter what it is. Like every sports team, every administrative team, every corporate team, they're looking for reliable members of the team. And if you're not physically available to help your team in baseball, are you really a good teammate?
No.
You know, is that are you reliable? Are you somebody that the team looks to count on you when it's needed? So I don't have all the answers to these things, but I do know the guys that are healthy and can keep themselves healthy. They can enjoy a lot of money and they can enjoy long careers.
Give me just a second to tell folks about the Costas Inn. And again, we announced today it's called a soft opening in the restaurant business, where they're not advertising this, but I got a text from Nick Triantopoulos today that the second Costas Inn over at the OTB in Timonium is now open for business, lunch and dinner. Remember, no steamed crabs, but everything else on the Costas menu available at the new Costas Inn. But if you want crabs, go to the old Costas Inn that's still out there at 4100 North Point Boulevard, 410-477-1975. But as of today, June the 2nd, Costas Inn OTB is open for business in Timonium. We're with Dan Duquette for a few more minutes. Ross, you ask your next question. And I'll
Yeah, Dan, you know, you're the general manager of the Orioles right now.
No, I'm not.
I just made you him.
He hasn't gotten a paycheck this year.
I appreciate
Hypothetically speaking, you're the general manager. Oh. Now you got the trading deadline coming up. I mean, what would you do to improve this team at this time?
Well, I think it's pretty clear the Orioles need more starting pitching. They got to get the guys they have on their team healthy and get them back pitching. And they need more starting pitching depth. The Orioles still have some pretty good position players and solid depth, across their organization with their position players. But the other great Oriole architect, Paul Richards, he used to say, if you can manage your pitching staff, and you should be able to keep your team in the pennant race for the whole season, right? It's hard to manage a team that doesn't have a reliable pitching staff and a couple of horses on the front of it. So I think I'd probably go out looking to see who I could find to be the most reliable group to give me the innings that I need to have a competitive team. The American League East is not very a hospitable place, right? It's
It's been a little bit more hospitable this year.
Yeah.
Well, it's very competitive.
Yeah.
And they got some teams that have good programs and a lot of resources. And if you don't have depth, especially your pitching staff, it's tough to have a good ball club.
Dan, are you doing stuff? As I said, if you're the GM, are you doing stuff with the Orioles now for the next couple of years or the future? Are you trying to win now? Because I know Rubenstein is a guy that wants to win now. And are you doing it for this year, next year, and then see what happens? Or
you're only 9 games out of the last playoff spot right now, with still 100 games to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a long season. I'm not sure the owner's a long-term horizon guy, right? How old is the owner? The owner's about 75 years old.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure he wants to leverage the foundation that's been built there with the Orioles to have a good ball club. So I think there's some urgency to, have a good team while you've got some of these young ball players on the team. You still have Henderson and you got Holiday. Those are young guys that should make you very competitive. Mullins and Mountcastle, those guys aren't going to be around forever, but they should help you be very competitive.
Dan, you didn't mention, and it's interesting, you probably just forgot, but Rutschman now, it's gone almost a calendar year. I mean, his last 2.5, 3 months last year and his first 2.5 months this year have been he's like a 200 hitter all of a sudden with very little power. Is there something, if you were in a position with the Orioles, would you be nervous about him or trying to figure out how to fix what is wrong?
Well, obviously he has a lot of ability, right? He has a lot of talent. Why he hasn't exhibited the talent in that long time frame that you just described, I don't know the answers to that. He didn't look like himself last year when I saw him in the playoffs.
Nope.
He was letting the pitches go by that he should have been offering at, and then he was swinging at the pitches that were pitchers' pitches, and he just didn't look like himself. And we were 2 months into this season, and he still seems to be in a bit of a funk. I'd probably give him another month, and I'd probably give him a month and a half, see if he can get things straightened out. And then if he didn't, I'd take a look at that kid they got at AAA, the Dominican kid.
Yeah, Basayo.
Basayo. I mean, he's got enough power to hit the ball out of Yellowstone, and he's a good hitter, and he's a very capable catcher. So
I want to
Dan. I think Rutschman has went backwards catching from when he first came up.
Yeah,
have you noticed
that shouldn't happen. You can you can look at the metrics and you can evaluate the catchers, right? You can evaluate the catchers defensively with all the data that they have. I mean, they made the catcher's job a little bit harder in terms of control of the running game with the adjustments that they made by making the bases bigger and giving the advantage to the base stealer so that they got a better chance to steal the base. So, I wouldn't put that much stock in it, but certainly the receiving, you can evaluate that.
Dan, I've got one more question for you.
Having a good catcher, Ross, is key to having a good team.
That's unbelievable.
We had a guy named Johnny Bench that was pretty good.
Gary Carter too.
Hey,
Gary Carter, Carlton Fisk.
Yeah.
Yogi Berra.
I've got one more for you, and then I'll let Ross close it out with a question. You hire, and I know we're hypothetically putting you in your former seat, but if you do make the managerial move like they did with Hyde, is a consideration this is a sort of a placeholder until we get our next guy, or do you think it's unhealthy to do it that way? That you sort of need to have an open mind that Tony Mansolino might come in and sort of knock your socks off a little bit, that he's the guy.
Yeah, well, whenever somebody names a manager and they say he's an interim manager, I always say, well, that's probably the whole industry, right?
Right.
We're
We're
day
all
to
into it.
day.
Yeah.
We're day to day. But like, I listened to this story that Tom Brady had, and Tom Brady was like the fourth team quarterback with Michigan.
Yep.
And he went to his therapist and he said, I only get like 1 rep or 2 reps every practice. And the guy said, well, you better do them as best you can, right? You better make every rep like it's a championship rep. And that would be my advice to Manzolino, right? This isn't for the faint of the heart. As long as you're the manager, you're the manager.
Yep.
Manage the team, and it's an opportunity to show people that you can manage a big league team.
All right. Ross, you got one more for Dan?
One more. Just Dan, where does Cal Ripken fit in, or does he, or what's his? What do you think he has to offer if anybody wants to ask him?
Well, Cal Ripken is the one of the preeminent players of the organization, right? And I was looking at his record last night, right? The guy played every single day. You're talking about best ability is availability. Now there's a dependable guy.
Unbelievable.
In fact, he goes way beyond that, right? I mean, he was available every year for what, 12, 13 years.
Every day.
Yeah. Didn't miss a beat. So, I mean, his legacy and his dependability should be a beacon for the players to follow in the Oriole organization. In regard to his management role with the team, I mean, that's up to them to figure it out. Cal and Billy developed their own instructional videos. Cal's dad was in the minor league system with Herm Starrett. When I went to Herm Starrett's house after he passed away, his daughter said, Dan, I want you to see this picture. This is us in spring training. When my dad ran the minor leagues, the pitching with the Orioles in Georgia, and Cal Ripken Sr. ran the camp. He was the field coordinator, director of player personnel, and there was a picture of the Starrett kids with the Ripken kids there in spring training. So, I mean, Cal's a great baseball man, and he has a lot of integrity and great stature in the community, and his legacy is cemented in the organization. I don't know what his ambitions are. I saw him in spring training, had a nice talk with him. And I was on Ryan's show. Ryan's doing great with his show.
Yeah, he's doing good with his show.
He seems to have a real knack as a broadcaster. He's very entertaining and well spoken, and of course, he grew up around baseball. So I don't know, but Cal's a good baseball man. He's a good person, and he has a lot to offer. I don't know what his aspirations are.
Yeah.
Dan, we've gone over already, but you got time for two more quickies?
Yeah, sure.
All right. One of them, I know we recently lost Jim Henneman up here, who Ross and I were very fond of. And I know he wasn't in the heart of his game when you were Orioles general manager, but he was writing for us for many of those years. I just wanted to know, do you have a Henneman story? Because I know how well respected he was by people like Harry Dalton.
Yeah, Jimmy was well respected. and I enjoyed the conversations that I had with him. I didn't know him as well as the Dalton game knew him.
Yep.
And Walter Yaus was one of my mentors who I learned a lot about from talent evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
And he spoke so highly of Jimmy Henneman from the time when he ran Leone's and he was around the ball club. And I was thrilled when they named the press backs in honor of Jimmy and his legacy. I mean, there's a guy that you talk about reliable guys that love the Orioles. That was Jimmy Henneman. And you know, when you were around Jimmy, you knew that he understood the tradition of the Orioles, the legacy of the club. He had great respect for the people that had given their life and made the Orioles a part of their livelihood. So I was sad to see him go, but he was always revered, if you will, by the guys in the Dalton game, and particularly Walter Yaus.
Last thing for you, seriously. When you open Pandora's box, sometimes you never know what's going to open. And baseball has gotten into bed with gambling now. You know, it's out there. You can't watch a broadcast without 20 ads about baseball betting and everything. And now we've got two cases this year, one with Liam Hendricks and now with Lance McCullers, where fans are threatening their kids and their wives over poor performance. I see a connection. Do you, Dan?
Well, that's it. That's just part of the collateral damage of selling out to gambling, right?
Yep.
And Major League Baseball is going to have to deal with that with their players. You know, they decided to take the plunge with gambling to you know, follow the money, if you will.
Sure.
And there's you know, this is some collateral damage from following the money, and they're going to have to find some balance. I mean, the way that the fans are so passionate about it,
Yeah.
you know, and
But fans have been passionate for hundreds of,
yeah,
50
so,
years. I don't recall ever hearing death threats other than the Eddie Wake's story, that was that based the natural on. But
yeah.
that was a psychotic woman.
Yeah, well, I mean, you bring up a good point. I was on a show the other day, and they asked me about Pete Rose,
Yeah.
and you know, if you were a voter, if you would vote for Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. I said, well, he's a great hitter. I said, I don't have a vote, but I read the reports about what he did as a manager, and I said, I'm not sure that I could vote to put him in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
There's, like I said, you're looking for reliable people and leadership on your team, and I don't know, man. That's
All right.
that's
All right. Hey, Dan, thanks.
That's not for me. That's not for me.
Thanks for doing this. You're a good friend. I really appreciate it. Okay.
All right. Thanks a lot. Good to see you guys.
Thanks, Dan.
All right.
Thank you.
Right, see you soon.
We remind you again, we've been brought to you by the Costas Inn, now open. In addition to North Point Boulevard, they're now open at the OTB in Timonium for lunch and dinner. Costas Inn. No steamed crabs out there, though. That's it for us today. For Dan Duquette, for Ross Grimsley, I'm Stan the Fan Charles Ross. We'll talk to you next week. Okay.
Be in town.
Go O's.
Go O's.
You'll be in town?
Coming into town, yeah, on the 17th.
Okay. All right. Talk to you soon.
Got you, buddy.